Copyright is a so-called form of intellectual property, and it protects original fixed expressions of authorship, such as books, scholarly papers, paintings, movies, songs. It's interesting to look at the worldwide trends in copyright, and I think we see that the United States has influenced the rest of the world, and the rest of the world has influenced the United States. And unfortunately, I think in both cases, we've had bad influences. Now, much of this has happened under the Berne Convention, which is an international agreement for the protection of copyright. And almost every country in the world is a member of the Berne Convention. And unfortunately, I think, it originated in Europe and it's influenced the United States, unfortunately, in a way. Because the European approach to copyright has traditionally been more of a romantic view. I don't mean romantic in the sense of, love. I mean romantic in the sense of the 19th century view of the author. And this originated originally in Hegel's view of authorship, and then later European philosophers developed it. And the idea is, to an American, a little bit strange, and I think it's unfortunate in terms of policy, but the idea is that an artist or an author sort of imbues his or her work with parts of their personality. So if I take an author's book and I interpret it, I've actually affected their personality. It's almost as if I've reached through the book and I've touched the soul of the author and maybe done something they don't like. And so the Berne Convention embodies this view that it's not just property. Copyright is beyond property. It's actually a form of personality. And this is, I think, an unfortunate view of copyright. It gives authors too much power over their works. Under the so-called moral rights, rights of the author's view, which is implemented in Berne, an author can even say, I'm withdrawing my work from the public sphere. You can no longer quote me because I disavow the work. Well, this is a European view of copyright that's influenced the law in the United States via the Berne Convention, and I think it's unfortunate. The American view, traditionally, has been more utilitarian, and that, I think, is a good thing. In the United States, traditionally, basically copyright was just a tool of industrial policy. It wasn't about protecting artists' souls. It was about making sure there were enough books and songs and movies to keep consumers happy. And so we created rights not to protect authorship per se, but to make authors create things. It's like dangling a carrot on a stick in front of a donkey to get them to walk. And so you just say to authors, we'll give you these limited rights to encourage you to write, say, a novel, and then we'll have a nice new book for the world. And that's traditionally been the American view. So as I say, American views of copyright have been influenced by the Berne Convention, I think, unfortunately. But the influence goes the other way also. The United States has influenced world copyright in some unfortunate ways, and mostly that's been by making copyright much more powerful. The United States has a very strong copyright lobby. New York publishing houses, and of course Hollywood, the music industry, the movie industry, they keep going back to the US Congress and saying, give us more, 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 and they keep getting more, more, more. Until very recently, they've been getting more, more, more. And then the United States goes to other countries and says, well, look, our artists in Hollywood, they get this kind of protection. We want this kind of protection in England and in France and in Russia. And so that's resulted in copyright terms getting longer and longer and copyright rights getting more and more powerful and broad. So we see these two influences, and I think they're both unfortunate, from Europe to the United States, embodying copyright with this philosophical idea that it's not just utilitarian, it's about a philosophical view about protecting the souls of authors. I think that's kind of silly, but that's what's happened. Well, it's interesting to consider the influence that hackers and pirates have had on copyright. Although I'm a skeptic of copyright, I'm not anti-copyright. So I will not say I smile on what hackers and pirates have done. I'm not defending them. But I will say that in some ways they've made things better for consumers. And I'll give you an example from the music industry. There was a time in the, I'd say, late 1990s and early 2000s in which it became very common through services like Napster for people to download music illegally. And many, many people did it. I talked to my students and they got their music for free basically on the internet. Now, I won't say I think that was a good thing all told, but it did have this benefit. It made the music industry realize we can't stop this by suing people. We just can't. It's not going to work. So we have to make music legally accessible. We have to make it easy for consumers to get the music they want legally. And I don't think the music industry would have been so eager to do that if they had not been losing money through services like Napster. And so what did they do? They created things like iTunes, which is a blessing from a consumer's point of view. And it's made a lot of money for the music industry as well. So I think we can be grateful that hackers and pirates have kind of given a kick in the pants to the music industry and made them make their works more available to consumers through legal channels. So that's a good thing. I think we're starting to see the same thing with regard to movies. People can download movies through the internet illegally, but it's not very convenient. And now we have services like streaming videos from Netflix. And again, I think we see the same dynamic. In industry after industry with regard to copyright, we have consumer demand which is not being met by the incumbents because the incumbents don't care. They can sue when people get things illegally, or so they think. And the internet changes that. It makes it easy for people everywhere at their computers to get illegal access to copyrighted works. And the industry has to change their business model to accommodate, and they end up making money, and consumers end up making money. And you can, I suppose, still download pirated music if you want to, but hardly anyone bothers because it's not convenient, the interface isn't very good, and you worry that you're getting maybe a virus when you download something. It looks like a song, and you're not comfortable with that, so you just go to iTunes. And so it's a good thing all around, but it seems that we have to have the pirates and the hackers encourage the music and publishing industry to improve their products. And we're seeing that. And so every cloud has a silver lining. And that's the silver lining with regard to pirates and hackers. From the United States to Europe and the rest of the world, we get more and more legal protections for authorship. And I think it's gone too far. That's all very unfortunate, but I do want to offer an optimistic note. Recently in the United States, there's been a slight change from that, and it's been a good change. And this happened in the early 2000 teens, we'll say, around 2012 to 2013. And lawmakers proposed yet another change to copyright law, and it made average citizens upset, because they learned that it might restrict their rights to use things like Wikipedia. And so Wikipedia put up these pages. When you went to Wikipedia, there was a page that it was blacked out as part of their public awareness effort. And so you had people in the street, or really at their computers, discovering that copyright might actually limit my access to Wikipedia and Google searches and all the things that I love about the internet. Then I don't like that. And Wikipedia and Google told people to write your congressman or congresswoman and tell them you don't like this, and they did. And suddenly, for once, finally, lawmakers discovered that if they increased copyright, members of the public would get upset. And so this changed copyright in the United States. It changed the politics of copyright. I was just in Washington in the spring of 2014 talking with lawmakers, and I discovered that they were very worried about having that same thing happen again. And I think that's a good and healthy thing. Finally, the average citizen has learned that copyright can hurt them if it goes too far, and they have told lawmakers, and lawmakers are paying attention. So finally, there's kind of a counterweight to the copyright lobby. And hopefully, in the long run, that will make copyright healthier, more balanced. Because for too long, it's been more and more and more copyright, and it's gone too far. And so there's hope to think that in the future, we're going to see a more balanced approach to copyright, at least in the United States. I can't speak about Europe, but the United States is such a powerful influence in the world with regard to copyright. Hopefully, if things in the United States become a little more healthy and sane, that will help make things worldwide a little better for copyright also.